Welcome to the Unlist. If you remember really early on in my channel's history, go back far enough, I made a video that was basically like the hard truth about compliments. So now I'm bringing back that theme. Like 50 plus videos later, I am bringing back that theme and I'm doing the hard truth about performance. You know, the cold hard truth that you can't handle, okay? So some of you are going to get your feelings hurt here. And guess what? I don't care. So just making that clear, I don't care. Now, there are common misconceptions about performance that a lot of people make because they get caught up in the bells and whistles of the influencers and the other people that exist usually to self-promote or promote something else so they can get paid. So just like a salesman, like a not necessarily honest salesman on top of that, they may say whatever they think you want to hear to get you to click that link so they can make a commission on that fragrance, okay? So a lot of people get fed at the trough of BS. They get fed the BS and they just hook, line, and sinker. And that's okay because I'm not necessarily here to make money. If I eventually get enough followers to make money, then cool, I'll make some passive residual income off my videos. But I'm not here to profit off you. I'm here to just spread joy and sometimes the cold hard truth like I am today. So it's what I enjoy doing, all right? I do this gratis because I enjoy it. So myth number one, this is the biggest one. People think that performance is directly tied to concentration. This is half true, okay? So there's a lot of science behind, believe it or not, there's a lot of science behind perfume concentrations. And the easy layman's version of it, the Bill Nye the Science Guy version of it, because I'm not Neil deGrasse Tyson, I am not going to speak in algebra, okay? So the layman's explanation here is that the more oil you put in a perfume, generally speaking, the more tenacious you can expect it to be, but not necessarily the more sillage you're going to get. And the reason is alcohol is the catalyst for evaporation. The alcohol in the perfume, which most perfumes that are made in the West are primarily alcohol actually, they're like anywhere from 90 to like 85% alcohol. That alcohol is what's breaking down the perfume, is what is carrying the scent molecules as they break down. So if you increase the oil, if you increase the quantity of aromatic compounds and decrease the alcohol, you actually increase the longevity. The fragrance will last longer because it will take longer to break down on your skin. But you don't necessarily get a stronger smelling fragrance in the moment. You just get a fragrance that might last on skin a lot longer. So an attar, which is all oil, will last a day or two, especially on clothes, because your skin eventually absorbs and eats your fragrance. It not just helps it break down because of the heat generated by your skin and the sweat, but it can also absorb it too, because your skin's an organ, okay? So you spray perfume on your skin, you're going to absorb those materials, which is why IFRA exists, by the way, because you get a rash from some things in high concentration. Clothes, however, don't sweat. Clothes don't really heat up when they can on being on your body. But usually a fragrance sprayed on your clothes is going to break down a lot more slowly because it has to quite literally decay on your clothes. The clothes are not assisting, okay, in its degradation, like your skin is actually assisting with degradation of your perfume. Now, there are some exceptions to that rule because there are certain compounds that are very volatile and will break down very quickly, offering a whole lot of sillage for a short amount of time. Aldehydes is one of such things. Citrus oils are another. There are compounds that will break down very quickly and will release a lot of smell super fast all at once, and then poof, it's gone. And that is why classic citrus-based fragrances are known to be very bright smelling, but then go away. Mint is the same way, okay? Certain herbs are the same way. If it has a very volatile molecular structure that can break apart with only a little bit of heat, okay, then yes, having that in your fragrance is going to make the fragrance smell really strongly. Now, in the very same token, there are a lot of synthetic molecules now that are quite literally custom tailored scientifically to deliver performance. You know, the so-called woody ambers, for example. Okay? So when you make a fragrance and you're using things like these woody ambers, you know, it doesn't always matter as much with the alcohol quotient, because we're talking about scientifically designed molecules to give you a lot of scent. And if people will complain, you know, you hear vintage enthusiasts complain about how all the modern woody ambers are so gadzooks strong. And I'm throwing them a bone because I'm agreeing with them. Yes, a lot of these modern woody amber chemicals are ridiculous. They are almost too much. No, they aren't almost. They are too much. They shouldn't even really exist. There isn't even a need to have fragrance molecules that are almost weaponized, that are so strong as to be dangerous, unless used with extreme caution. You shouldn't have to do that, right? It's like hot sauce. If your hot sauce comes with a warning label, you probably shouldn't eat it. Just saying. So, those are the exceptions. But in general, no. The stronger it is, concentration-wise, not necessarily better performance. More longevity, but not necessarily better performance. Myth number 2. And this one is going to be fought a little more by some of you out there. And this is the myth that fragrances either get weaker the longer you have them, like you get through half the bottle and you can't smell it as good as you used to anymore. You got to wear it twice or 3 times as much. Or that when you finish a bottle and you buy a new bottle, the reformulation is automatically weaker because they deliberately weaken the fragrance in subsequent revisions of the fragrance because they want to lose money. They want you to buy more and use more. Okay, the tinfoil hats can come off because, yeah, the fragrance will change in the bottle as oxygen is introduced, and the fragrance will start to oxidize in the bottle, whether you're wearing it or not. You can get degradation of some of the more volatile compounds, like those aldehydes, like those citruses. They can turn, they can disappear, they can wilt. But whatever's left in that bottle is not necessarily going to be weaker than what was in there before. It's just going to change the balance of the fragrance. And if too much oxidation occurs, the fragrance turns. But you have to really, really subject the fragrance to a lot of sunlight, a lot of UV damage, a lot of heat, if you expect it to completely turn. Like, I've bought so many vintage fragrances from 50, 60, 70 years ago, and they were kept in the bottle, in the dark, in a box. Okay, they were treated well. They weren't opened a whole lot, if they were opened at all, and they still smell fantastic. Sure, there could be changes, but they're not changes large enough to ruin the integrity of the scent itself. So no, your 2-year-old, 3-year-old bottle of Dior Sauvage that's now half empty isn't weaker than it was when you first bought it. It might be slightly different, and you're not aware of that because the gradual use of the fragrance means that you just slowly adapt to those changes and you don't perceive them. But it's not weaker. And as far as the other thing is concerned, it's 2 birds with 1 stone. When you finish an old bottle, since the juice in that bottle has probably oxidized a whole lot, possibly evaporated some, again, whatever smell is in that bottle that you've become used to, the performance you expect from that bottle, now you jump to a new bottle. That new bottle is not necessarily weaker. It's just fresh. So yes, there could be reformulation changes. It might not have as much oak moss, or it might have a different kind of white floral in it because of the bannings of Lirol and stuff. Okay, there could be some changes, some aesthetic changes, but it's not necessarily weaker. It's just fresh, and you're not used to the way it smells. So you're used to what you just finished. So this whole thing ties together my point about performance, the cold, hard truth. 10 minutes into the video, and now we're getting to the real deal of this discussion here. And that is typically when we are talking about performance, The problem is BAC. Okay? Actually, no, I'm saying that incorrectly. It's DAC. The problem is DAC. And DAC is a term used by tech support guys from the 90s as a joke. I don't know if they do it anymore, but way back in the day when not everyone was super tech savvy, not everyone was really knowledgeable about how to use Windows, a good portion of the tech support calls to Microsoft and other software companies was just a matter of customer ignorance, not knowing how to use the software. So they would say the problem was DAC, or it was between desk and chair. So they had a between DAC problem, or a BDAC problem, or a DAC problem, different variations. Well, that applies here. A lot of your performance issues are BDAC or DAC. The problem is actually you. It's not the fragrance, it's you. And some of you might be going, oh, but that's victim blaming. That's a toxic thing to do. No, because first of all, you're not a victim. Not being able to smell perfume, okay, that's not a traumatic experience. You're not suffering from trauma when you can no longer smell your perfume. That is a first world problem. That is an inconvenience. So you're not a victim, first of all. Second of all, the reason why it's your fault is nature. The reason why it's your fault, why the performance issue is your fault, is your nose is behaving exactly the way it was designed to, the way it has evolved to operate. So you can mitigate these things, which I'm going to tell you how to do that in a second here. But 90% of performance issues people have, it's actually their perception. It's their fault, not the fragrance's fault. It's not some weird conspiracy to make your fragrances weaker. Because trust me, if they really tried to do that sincerely, they would lose more customers than they're already losing. People are already not buying perfumes like they used to. People already don't wear perfume like they used to. They're trying to regain the loss of customers, not lose them further. Yeah, reformulations happen to make changes to a fragrance on purpose, a lot of times to cheapen the fragrance or make it more palatable based on marketing, blah, blah, blah. So there are other conspiracy reasons at play here, but making it weaker on purpose is not one of them. The only time I would accept the argument that a fragrance is made weaker deliberately is because nowadays we just live in a cleaner environment. We don't have all the car exhaust. We don't have all the cigarette smoke. I've already discussed that at length in other videos. People generally have a better sense of smell now than they had 20, 30 years ago. And because we all generally have a better sense of smell since we don't have constant bombardment from other things in the air, it means that a lot of fragrances that were made in the 70s and the 80s are too strong now. So they are toned down just to take into account the fact that people now aren't chain smoking anymore or driving gigantic Buicks without catalytic converters belching out car exhaust, down the freeway. Okay? That is the only time I will accept that argument, is when it makes sense. Now, what's really going on is your nose is tuning out your favorite fragrance. And it's tuning out your favorite fragrance for a number of reasons. But the primary one is your nose brain, okay, your olfactive connective tissue here is designed to help you survive. Even though we don't have the sense of smell that like a dog has. We used to at one point rely on our sense of smell to survive, okay? So we used to have to smell the presence of predators. We used to have to, this is gross, but bear with me, we used to have to smell when someone else was sexually active. We used to have to smell that. Not so much anymore because we all wear cologne and deodorant, we all wash between our legs now, but there was a point in time when we're a bunch of cavemen running around, banging rocks together. We got to smell when Lucy is ready to go, okay? And that's gross, but we did. Or in reverse, Lucy had to smell when Unga Bunga was ready to go. You have to pick up on those things. It's how the babies were made, guys. Same thing. There's a monster in the bushes getting ready to eat you. You got to be able to smell that, okay? And a lot of times we have a certain sensitivity. We don't realize it, but we have a certain sensitivity to scatological smells and body odors because that's our survival mechanism kicking in. You are more likely to notice the piss in an alley than you are flowers right next to you. The piss coming out from the alley is going to go, oh, what is that? And it could be tulips right next to you. But you're going to perceive that piss first, because the tulips don't pose a threat to you. But the piss is a mark of a predator, potentially. You're not thinking that. That's your subconscious thinking that. That's your survival mechanism thinking that, and it's making you notice it. Now, the other thing is, if it's a smell that is pervasive, if it is a smell that saturates an area, like you're in a swamp and you're smelling swamp gas, right? You live in that swamp, you don't smell the swamp gas anymore. Same thing with your own personal body odors. You know, people in countries where they don't wear deodorant, they think they don't need the deodorant because they're so used to the way their armpits smell or their crotch smells, they don't smell it. So they don't need the deodorant because to them the smell doesn't exist. Their brain has gone and turned it off. Same thing with cigarette smokers, people who live with a bunch of animals. If you're like an animal hoarder and got like 15 cats in your house, you smell like a cat box. When you walk outside, you smell like a litter box, but you can't smell a thing. You're used to it. You don't smell any of that. Everyone else does, but you don't. Okay? So that exact thing happens to fragrances. Oh, yes, it does. If you are the club bro that sprays on the 15 different shots of Sauvage before heading out, now, don't get me wrong, Sauvage is so strong. I think like 3 sprays is too much. But if you're the guy that lays on real heavy the fragrance, you know, you might smell it for the first like 6 months, you own it. But after a while, your brain goes, no, and just turns it off. So then you think there's something wrong with the fragrance. So what do? You add more sprays. Oh, well, when I started out, I had to wear 3 sprays. Now I have to wear 7. Now I wear 10. Then you have the guys going, yeah, I put on 15 shots of Koros before I go out in public. Meanwhile, everyone around you is running and screaming for the hills to get away from you. But you can't smell it because you have gone anosmic. Your brain has gone, nope, none of that, and turns it off. Why? Why? The why is very simple, and it harkens back to the survival mechanism again. Your brain tunes out those smells so you can smell other things around you that could be more important, you know, so that you can have that survival mechanism. Your brain is not going to let you continuously process a smell that has been deemed of no consequence to you. So that way you can smell the predator. That way you can smell the food if you're hungry. That way you can smell whatever it is that could be a threat or a benefit to you. Okay, your spatial awareness is preserved. The anosmia, the tuning out of your own fragrance, is for your own spatial awareness. Here's how you mitigate it. Here's how you mitigate it. I know the first thing is going to be, oh, just wear less, right? Oh, wear less. Yes, generally speaking, wear less. But you've got to get yourself to be able to smell your fragrance again. And the biggest way to do that is to keep it away from places where you're going to inhale constantly. So my big no-no is no shirt, no chest. This entire section of your body, this whole section here, is like your breatheway. I call it your breatheway. The area where most of the air you're going to take in during your lifetime is going to come from directly in front of you, correct? So you don't want to have any fragrance right there, because you're going to breathe it in all day and smell it all day. And that's going to make you what? It's going to make you anosmic to it. It's going to make you tune it out. So I call it an order of retreat. You have to learn to put your fragrance in places that are further and further away from your nose, so that you have to turn your head and smell it. You have to perspire a little bit to smell it. You have to, in effect, work to smell it. So the first order of retreat, using that term, is here. Put your fragrance here. Put it here. If you want to do one spray, one spray, there, one spray, there. Pretend that you're putting on aftershave. It's kind of hard to spray yourself that close. You don't want to get it in your eyes, right? So I don't want you to blind yourself. So spray it in your hand and apply it. You can spray it in your hand and apply it. And then wash your freaking hands after, so you're not smelling it on your hands. That's it. Just one here and one here. Okay? Maybe one back here. If you want to have some sillage behind you. So 3 sprays. 1, 2, 3. Now, if you are wearing a very strong fragrance, and I mean it's like, it's like a powerhouse, like an 80s fragrance, you may not want to go here. You may actually want to go a little further back, which is you do what the old women used to do in the 20s and 30s. They put it behind their ear. There's a reason why Grandma did that, okay? Grandma put the fragrance behind her ear because Grandma was probably wearing a very potent parfum or an extrait de parfum. She was wearing Jickie, or she was wearing Shalimar, or a little bottle number 5. So she took her little glass dabber, she put a little bit on her finger, and she went up like this, and then she went up like this. And she smelled gorgeous, right? You could smell her, you could smell the whole room off of 2 little dabs. Because your ears have blood vessels in them, and they act as veins, basically. They, like a radiator, they radiate heat because the blood vessels are very close to the surface of the skin, so they are very capable of heat loss. All right? So you put fragrance there, and what happens? Your earlobes effectively then become diffusers. Yeah, I know. That sounds weird, but it works. Your earlobes become diffusers. So you put it behind your ear, not in the front. That's kind of weird, putting cologne in your ear. Just put it back here. Again, put it in your hands, put it on your fingertips. Rub it back here like this, back here like this, okay? Again, spray to the back of your neck or whatever. You should be fine. At first, you may have trouble smelling it if you have been anosmic for a very long time. You've driven yourself nose blind from over-application. Might be a week or 2. Or you can just do what I do and not wear any fragrance at all for like 2 whole weeks and just completely detox. That's tough for some of you guys. Some of you guys who are like addicted, got to wear fragrance every day, 3 times a day, morning, noon, and night, change out your scent of the day, okay? I get it. But sometimes you got to put it down and you got to detox. And then once you do, and you come back into it and you're fresh, try this thing. Try the behind the ear thing. Try the back of the neck thing. Now, if you're wearing aftershave, yeah, that's going to go all in the front of you. So if you've redeveloped a strong sense of smell and you try to use aftershave, you might like gag yourself because now you're not used to it being on the front of you. The best way to do that is to do what your parents did with their aftershave. Your dad puts it in his hands, splashes it, and then it goes like that, and that's it. Doesn't rub it in, just goes real quick with the aftershave. You should be good to go. You'll actually save aftershave that way anyway. Your bottle will last longer. And then, of course, last but not least, if we are in the summer months or spring or early fall and you wear short sleeves, guess what? You've got 2 wonderful areas for fragrance because even if you're a woman, you have a little bit of arm hair. Guys have more, clearly, but you've got some arm hair. All of these are diffusers, okay? So you take some of your fragrance, you just mist it on your arm, mist it on your arm, let it dry, do what you got to do. You can still put some behind here if you want to, whatever. But now you're moving around and you've got scent coming and going all day long. In the wintertime, that doesn't work so well because you've got covered sleeves. In the wintertime, you're wearing long sleeve shirts. So in that case, I suggest back of your hand. You use much less, though. You just take one spray on the back of your hand and then do this. Problem is, the moment you really wash your hands, it's gone, right? So it means you can't wash your hands a whole lot if you use that method, but that's another method. The bottom line here is the further away from your face, the further away from the breathing path, the further behind you, the further away from you, the better. Now, not all fragrances are created equal, and there are going to be some that are just not as potent as others, okay? I'm not saying that this fixes every fragrance. Some things like 4711 are only going to last 2 hours no matter what because that's just the nature of them, to be here now and gone a second from now. You can't turn everything into a powerhouse. You're just not. But I guarantee you the bulk and majority of your performance woes, regardless of new or old, niche or mainstream, cheap or expensive, it's all up to you. So, okay, this has been The Unlist. Hope you enjoyed it.